Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering. Here we have Jan on a 12-post list versus John on Blue-Black Storm. That's got to be one of the tougher matchups for a 12-post list, as Storm can take that first turn or two and just absolutely plow forward unimpeded. And it looks like Jan may have access to Bajukabog via Elvish Reclaimer. And that is going to be Thought Seized away. So right now, this hand looking incredibly slow. This Green Sun Zenith very often could find a Dryad Arbor when it's in an opening hand, but in this list, likely going to need to be a little bit higher value. This is not looking to ramp incrementally. This is looking for exponential growth. We're talking about multiple Cloud Posts down. If you have just 4 Cloud Posts, they're each going to tap for 4, making 16 mana and literal hard castable Emeralds. We got a Night's Whisper, drawing a couple cards for Storm. Cloud Post entering the battlefield tapped, holding off on getting the Elvish Reclaimer via Green Sun Zenith. This Zenith may have juicier targets. Perhaps Collector Oof. Tough to say what might be in here. But with the Eye of Ugin already in hand, really the task is to get as much mana as fast as possible, tutor up a very devastating Eldrazi, and then cast it for full retail. This is probably not going to go well. Reign of Filth going to allow these swamps to be sacrificed for black mana. And now Threshold with Cabal Ritual, and this is looking quite bad. Chrome Mox imprinting a Brainstorm, and now Peer into the Abyss. Probably not going to need to spend a blue mana to draw 3 when you're literally drawing your half of your entire deck. And it'll be quite shocking if John doesn't win from here. It's unlikely that a line involving the graveyard is going to get disrupted with that mystery card. Don't expect that to be crop rotation. That would have been able to deny 2 mana off of this, which I think would have actually stopped the Peer. So don't anticipate any disruption. It's really a question of if John's getting an incredibly unlucky draw from here, which, I mean, doesn't seem to be the case. An excessive amount of Storm and then a Tendrils for the easy KO in what's going to be a very difficult match. We'll see how prepared Jan is for this in his sideboard. He may have some helpful artifacts or things that are disruptive for Storm, at least, even though they don't help 12 posts toward their ultimate goal. It does at least prevent Storm from just sprinting over the finish line. Things like Thorn of Amethyst, Sphere of Resistance, Chalice of the Void. There are a lot of options. Sometimes you mix them up so you don't get hit by Echoing Truth. That is a consideration. I don't know that Chalice is at its strongest in this type of build, though you can Chalice at virtually any number thanks to the excessive amounts of mana. But honestly, when you have that much mana, you're not generally worried about what your opponent is doing, as you're kind of dunking on them, either resolving a Green Sun Zenith for Primeval Titan and just going so far over the top, or casting one of those previously mentioned Eldrazi. So Jan's going to get the play. And he's got that turn 1 Reclaimer, which is very, very strong versus the blue decks in the format, as if it's not removed or countered, will eventually convert every land into a Cloud Post, or perhaps something even more dangerous, Eye of Ugin, for example. And now we get a turn 1 Dark Confidant. Interesting card in this deck, given that it runs Peer into the Abyss. He may be revealing a very expensive single card, but, greatness at any cost. And Vesuva copying the basic forest, which is not an ideal curve here. Perhaps there's some hate in Jan's hand that made it worth keeping this kind of suboptimal starting mana base. If that Vesuva was a Cloud Post, this would be very different. But as it is not super useful, like strictly worse than a basic forest there. And yet another forest, this one presumably off the top of the deck. He'll be able to start converting these incrementally. Getting some Cloud Posts, eventually Eye of Ugin. Can also just kind of wait and see if the graveyard is going to be needed and then get a Bojuka Bog. So that Vesuva is moving on to become a Cloud Post in all likelihood. Oh, Ancient Tomb. Interesting. What are we going to see here? Why specifically Ancient Tomb? I'm sure that'll be revealed shortly. It's got to be a short-term play, I'd imagine, as the long-term upside for Cloud Post is incredibly high. The new Yavimaya, a welcome addition to this 12-post list, though I'm not sure if this is prior. This may actually be prior to the new list. Oh, we've got a Thought-Knot Seer, I should say. And he sees some good stuff. There's a Tendrils, a Reign of Filth, Ancient Tomb, allowing for this Thought-Knot Seer and keeping the 2 mana open for Elvish Reclaimer. The Tendrils gets a lot of respect there and is taken. Dark Confidant finding mana, which is what kind of feels best in the control matchups. In a Storm matchup like this, I think you're happy to just find the good stuff, any type of rituals, accelerants that can help you resolve your bomb. That looks like a duress to me. And we've got a Surgical in response. This looks like the Khans of Tarkir, or Dragons of Tarkir, I should say. Duress. I remember playing in that pre-release and somebody actually went turn 1 Swamp Duress. I thought they were joking because I was a vintage player and that was a common play at the time. And I didn't recognize the Duress, but they actually were duressing me. I was surprised. Mindbreak Trap getting pulled from the hand and not a whole lot left to play with here. There's a Green Sun Zenith and a Tabernacle. Tabby can be rotated out with Elvish Reclaimer. That'll probably be the best use of it in this scenario. Assuming that the way is not clear, which it may just be. Giving a deck like this a ton of time is just so dangerous. Oh yeah, no, this is rough. This is going to be 7 mana on board, which is all it needs to resolve Peer into the Abyss. A Cabal Ritual on top of it, and Bojuka Bog does clear the graveyard, but it still adds a mana, so John should be at 8. Able to tap 3, sack the 4 lands, So I believe he's got 8 mana, and he's pretty much just in the driver's seat now. Unless I've miscounted from the sidelines, but I don't suspect that's the case. And there's the Peer into the Abyss. This is likely to be it. Yeah, they're just going over the math. He had 3 untapped lands, so he'd be able to tap the 3 and then sack the 4. That's 7, 8, and he's on Peer. So just a little bit of bookkeeping here. We should be good. Peer into the Abyss, drawing half the library. And I believe with 1 mana floating, this should probably be it right here. May have been worth it to fire off a Surgical Extraction to get a Dark Ritual, for example, but I mean, that's probably not going to be the difference maker. I mean, this is not looking great. I probably would have fired off the Surgical prior. Oh, if it was in there. Maybe I'm thinking of the other game. If there was a Dark Ritual in there, you definitely want to fire it off. But no, it looks like there's actually all 4, so that answers that. There was no Dark Ritual to snag. That's one of the only cards that would have mattered. And just all the storm here. Unfortunately, Thought-Knot Seer exiling the Tendrils and not forcing a discard, as hitting that with Surgical would have been lovely. And now it is, I think, does that solve the equation? I think it may be. Grabbing a Pact and casting Tendrils. I mean, there's nothing left to be done as John takes this one down in what is a very, very difficult matchup for one of the scarier decks in the format, but everything has an Achilles heel.